All right, well, this week I've got an interesting effect. Somebody wrote in to me recently wanting to know how to create that really cool burst out effect. You've probably seen it in advertisements and movie posters where a fist or something is punching through and there's paper ripping out and everything like that. And incidentally, this effect is on my Starting From Scratch course, which is available on the Kilby online training. But I figured I'd go ahead and show it here because actually got more than one request for similar type of effect, so I thought I'd go ahead and show it here. I've got a background here that's going to be the background of my effect. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new blank layer right above that layer. And I'm going to go over here into the toolbar and choose my lasso tool. And it's going to go inside the document here. And I'm going to hold down my Option key or the Alt key if you're on a Windows machine. And we're just going to draw a straight edge shape. It's just a kind of a random size shape here, but with just straight edges as we go around. And then we'll close it out at the very end there. Next, we're going to go ahead and fill that selected area with a color. I'm just going to go ahead and fill it with black in this case. So I'm just going to press Option Delete, which will fill the foreground color into that selection. I'm going to go ahead and deselect that, and I'm going to go and create another blank layer right above this one, and using the same lasso tool, but just this time, just very loosely drawing, instead of holding down any of the keys, on each corner, you can see as each point, because we got straight edges here going on, but at each corner we're going to draw a different shape. So let's start like right here, and I'm just going to kind of randomly draw just a shape that kind of peers out there and just kind of finish it up in there. And these are the edges or the parts that are kind of ripping apart or ripping open as this hand punches through here. Now I'm going to hold down my Shift key so I can add to this selection and do the same thing going all the way around, just loosely drawing a shape as I come around here. And we'll do the same thing here. I'm just releasing the mouse and then drawing a new shape on a new edge. And don't worry about the loose areas that we're drawing inside the black area. We're going to take care of those in just a moment. And we'll just kind of draw shapes out here. Again, I'm still just holding down the Shift key and just drawing a new shape as I go around. I'm actually redraw that last one. I just did a Command Z there, and then we'll just continue to hold down the Shift key and add to the selection. And we'll come around to this shape. And we'll wrap it up right around in here, just like that. So, doesn't look like much yet, but we're going to get there in just a second. Notice how we went inside the black area here, just kind of randomly. And that's okay, because what we're going to do is, over here in the layers, if you hold down the Option, or actually, if you hold down the Command or the Control key, you can see it turns into a little selection tool. And if you hold down the Option or Alt key, it turns into a minus. Now, we've got that. Currently the blank layer is highlighted. What we're going to do is actually subtract this shape on this layer from this selection that's on this layer. So simply hold down the Command key and the Option key, that would be the Control Alt key on a Windows, and click that layer just beneath it, and it will remove that selected area from that shape. So now with that selected area still on this blank layer, I'm going to press Shift Delete to bring up the fill dialog, and we'll get to use 50% gray. I will click OK. And then we'll just press Command or Control D to deselect. So we've got what looks like the shape of a hole with the edges kind of ripped out. But we got to give it a little bit more dimension, a little bit more realistic dimension here. So what we're going to do is, with that layer still selected, I'm going to go in here and choose my Burn tool right here in the toolbar. And we're going to use some relatively low settings here. I'm going to leave the exposure at about 25 and just leave it set to mid-tones. And let's use a little bit bigger brush. I'm going to use a bracket up a little bit here to about 45 there. And what I'm going to do is just brush on the edges here. I'm just going around the edge, just darkening that edge that's closest to the hole there. Kind of gives it a little shadow and a little bit of depth. We'll just go around a couple of times, just like that. And I'm also going to paint around the outside here, just so it kind of gives it a little bit of depth right around that outside edge there. So it's starting to show some dimension because we've added some shading and it's giving a little bit of dimension to it. But we're going to make that dimension a little bit more realistic by running a quick filter on it. And if anybody's been following my work, knows one of my favorite filters is, you can probably guess, that's right, it is the plastic wrap. There we go. But look, I haven't even changed any settings yet, and look how cool that looks already. Because we've shaded those edges around, we've given it direction. We've isolated where the plastic wrap is going to apply, and it's actually keeping to the overall shape or the contour area of our hole here. So Maybe I want to increase the highlight a little bit. I can modify these things. Actually, these settings that just popped up look actually pretty good. So it's going to leave those as they are. If you feel like you want to experiment with them yourself, just to modify the settings a little bit more, just to give it a different look, by all means, go right ahead. So once I'm all done with that, we'll click OK. And we've got what looks like a really realistic hole. Well, let's make it a little bit more realistic. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that bottom layer, and I'm just going to click and create a new blank layer. And what I'm going to do is actually use my brush tool, painting with black, and just kind of brush some shadows in here. Make that a very, very soft brush up here in the options bar, and let's take it up to about 40. And to make it softer, just remember, if you hold down the Shift key and use the bracket keys, that adjusts the hardness or softness of your brush. And then just using the bracket keys without any extra keys will affect the size. So with that said, and I'm painting with black, I'm just going to paint some areas right up in here. Let's actually turn off the pressure sensitivity because I don't need that right now. Paint some areas up under here. And we're painting with pure black, as you can see right now. I'm just going to modify the opacity of the layer over here in the layers panel. I'm just going to drop that down to about 50. Not quite that much. Let's try 75. Now let's just paint in a few more areas of shadows in here, close to these cracks. And give that a little bit more dimension. You can see how it's giving a little bit of a depth there. Just painting in those areas just a little bit. Maybe bring it out here a little bit. Just like that. And that pretty much does it. You know, I could spend a little bit more time probably fine-tuning that detail, but in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and drop our hand in here. I've got a file of a hand. Let's take our move tool and just drag and drop it into here. And let's bring it to the front and simply position it right in place. And real quick, we've got pretty convincing hand punching right through the wall, and we've got the areas all ripped out. Looks pretty good. Got a nice dimension to it. Now, if we wanted to take it a bit further, just real quick, notice we got the hand coming out. To enhance the depth of that hand that's coming at us, or kind of, you know, in perspective, I add a little bit of a shadow onto this bottom area here. So let's go ahead and click that layer and create a new blank layer above it. Using that same brush tool, let's take the opacity of the layer over here down to about 50% this time. Using that same brush tool, let's just paint right under here, giving that hand a little bit of a cast shadow. Maybe it kind of comes out on the side of the wall here. Just making that a little bit more realistic as it punches out of that wall there. Just like that. Pretty cool stuff.